And I would probably still lean toward defense because I think this is going to be a running based team again, and not necessarily conventionally as they weren't last year. Their leading rusher last year, I think people forget, had whatever Miles had, 757 yards, whatever the number was. The quarterback's a big part of that rushing attack. Um, so I think they're going to use that unconventional compared to the rest of the league offense again. And if you want to win games that way, you got to make sure the defense is a lot better. And they've made at least incremental improvements with Hassan Reddick and Kaiser White.
John, you and I have discussed for the last 10 days about who the Eagles are bringing in for their pre-draft visits. And you said, Jody, the individual names are important, but also keep an eye on the positions, that can be as telling as the individuals they're bringing in. They've been active at the wide receiver spot. They brought in or bringing in a safety over the next couple of days, the Penn State kid. So there are positions that they're giving us a peek at that they're at least considering. Which is a bigger need for the Eagles? A second wide receiver behind Devontae Smith or a top? I'm sorry, Anthony Harris, but if they take a safety with the first pick of the draft, that'll be safety one if we had such a thing in the NFL. Which position, in your estimation, is more important for the Eagles to fill wide receiver?
Well, I'll ask you a question before I answer that, Jody. Do you believe the Eagles? If you believe the Eagles, wide receiver would be the more important position because they need to evaluate the quarterback and they have to build around the quarterback and they have to get the quarterback weapons. I don't believe the Eagles. So, how do you want to go? How do you want to go about this? How do you want to build? How do you want to try to win games?
Let me rephrase the question because you turned it around on me, which you should have. If Howie Roseman called John McMullen this afternoon and said, listen, I need a little advice here. We're kind of at a toss-up position between the two. As a matter of fact, if I could show you my draft board, which I won't because you're a dreaded member of the media, we have the exact same grade on Hamilton and Olave. We'll use him as an example because they brought him in yesterday. So it purely comes down to, for us, which of the two guys is a bigger help to the team, year 1, year 3, year 5, year 10. If he was asking for your advice, which way would you tell him to go?
Well, in that scenario, I take Kyle Hamilton, but that's kind of unfair to Chris Olave because I love Kyle. I think Kyle Hamilton's the best football player in the draft. I really do.
Yep.
I think he's the best football player in the draft. So maybe the better would be Dax Hill or Chris Olave. And then I think it's a far more difficult decision for me. And I would probably still lean toward defense because I think this is going to be a running based team again, and not necessarily conventionally as they weren't last year. Their leading rusher last year, I think people forget, had whatever Miles had, 757 yards, whatever the number was. The quarterback's a big part of that rushing attack. So I think they're going to use that unconventional compared to the rest of the league offense again. And if you want to win games that way, you got to make sure the defense is a lot better. And they've made at least incremental improvements with Hassan Reddick and Kaiser White, but they've also taken steps back with no Steve Nelson and Rodney McLeod. Now, they wanted to get better at those positions anyway, but you have to get better. So one of the things everyone says, Jody, when free agency starts in this league, you want to fill as many holes as possible with at least Band-Aids so you don't feel this necessity to reach for a particular position. And I was thinking about this yesterday. When from the start of free agency to now, I think the Eagles have looked like they have more needs than when they started this process. And Howie's right when he says this is a snapshot. We still got the draft. We still got post draft. Tyrann Mathieu out there. If he comes in all of a sudden after the draft, you're like, oh, that's pretty good at safety. That's an improvement over. So there's plenty of room to improve, and he's 100% right when he says that. However, if you use that thought process, which he's always said, him and every other GM, well, to this point, you haven't done a good job because you're heading to the draft when we say, what if you want to take the kid from Jordan? What if Jordan Davis is there at 15, but you feel this incredible need to, well, we got to get a wide receiver. We haven't been able to get Calvin Ridley and Robert Woods and Allen Robinson and Christian Kirk. What if you feel that need to say, well, there's only one corner left, and we don't have the safety net. We can't call Steve Nelson after the draft and say, Steve, come back. What if you feel that compel and you take a player who isn't as good as a player you could get, but you have more talent at that particular position? I don't think Howie Roseman has set the Eagles up well. T-minus 2 weeks to the draft. I think they're more susceptible. Doesn't mean they have to reach, but they're more susceptible to reach now because they haven't filled the holes they've needed to fill with at least safety nets.